Hello there, my name's Dave Allen, I'm good and geeky, and today we're going to have a look at setting up a Django project. And this is the way I like to set it up, based upon a few tutorials that I've seen from various people, and I think it's going to be some sort of best practice and the way I like to have it set up. So let's get started here. I'm in Warp, which is a terminal application. You could use iTerm or you could use the built-in terminal that comes with the Mac, but I'm going to do it in Warp because Warp's pretty good. It does some nice little tricks there that I think you might like. So if you haven't tried it before, have a look at it and see what you can do with it. So the first thing I want to do is I want to create a folder. I could do make dir and then name the folder and then cd into it, but I've got a little thing set up in my zsh.conf file, which is an alias, and what it'll do, it'll make this part of the process easier for me. So I've got it set up so it's called take. So I want to take, and then I want to put in the name of the folder I want to have it in. So I'm going to do it called let's call it Django base. Okay, so here we are in this folder, Django base, and what we want to do now is we want to create a virtual environment. Python 3 -m venv and then venv. And basically that runs this and creates the virtual environment for me. Once you have it created, you've got to activate it. And I've got something else in there, an alias in my zsh config file, and I'm going to run that now, which is svba. So this is the alias for source venv bin activate. Thing is running now, and I've got it over here, and it just says there Django base, and that's how I know that I've got a virtual environment running. And as you see, I've got nothing in there as yet. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to install some things that we need. And let's get started by putting Django in there. Django has just been updated to Django 5. Let's go for pip install Django. So this is going to install Django. And it's also going to ask me to upgrade pip. So let's do that as well. Upgrade pip. Well, let's do a pip install django-environ. So what this Django environment does is it allows me to make a .env file, and the .env file will be read by the settings.py in Django, and the secret key can be hidden away, and it's not going to be messed up and put in public places where someone could get at it. So let's install that. And another thing we want to do is do a pip install of pillow. And you don't necessarily need pillow if you're not going to put any images into your project, but it's probably likely you're going to, so let's put it in there anyway. Okay, so we've got that in there now. Let's have a look and see what we've got. Let's do pip freeze. And something else that you want to do is make a requirements.txt file, and you can do that quite easily by sort of putting in this little greater than sign, then requirements.txt, cat, and look inside the requirements file. And that's the one I want, and as you can see, this is what I've got in there. Next thing we want to do is we want to start the Django project, so let's do that now. And the base core of the project, I'm going to use this one here, which was a way that was suggested by Andreas Judd. And you use core as because it's the basics, the core of the Django application, and then we put a dot after it so that the files are installed directly into that, and then it doesn't go and make another folder on top of the folder that we've got already. So let's press enter on that there, see what's in there. And as you can see, we've got manage.py in there. We've got this folder here, a core. Have a look in this folder, see what I've got in there. So you can see I've got in the settings there, I've got the urls.py and a couple of other files there. That one there in it, the double underscores in front and behind it, and the py, that just shows that it's a Python package. Okay, so let's go back up a folder, back into the starting point again. So let's do that. And I can do that by doing Z, which is from zoxide, by the way. Zoxide is very useful. It gives you a way to move around in your terminal a lot easier than using CD. It does a bit of fuzzy finding, and it helps to just move about quickly. So that's why I use it. So let's do Z ... press enter, and that's taking me up a folder. And you see I'm back in there where the manage.py is, which is where I want to be. So let's start an app, a Django app. I'm going to add this in now. So let's go with this one. App's going to be called Spondicious. So I'm going to press enter. So let's do LL. Now you can see that I've got the core, which is the basics of the Django application. And I've got this one here, which is an app. And it's called Spondicious. If I do PMR, which is an alias running Python manage.py runserver. So now we've got our server running with the 127.0.0.1 and the port 8000. We can command click on this and it'll open up in the browser. Okay, so you can see that it's actually worked. I've got Django up and running because I've got this page here, which is great. Let's go back into Warp. Okay, so that's good. We can close this down now. We do Control and C, and that closes that down. Now I want to move into VS Code and do some work in VS Code. I could use Neovim. I like using Neovim. Let me just show you Neovim quickly. NV, which is the alias for Neovim. And then I do Control and N. And you can see what I've got in there. I've got the A-core there. I've got Spondicious, which is the app. And you see I've got the database in there, look. Manage.py, requirements.txt. Show you the requirements.txt. But we're not going to use Neovim today because I've been using VS Code for a while and I quite like it. So let's do code. Got it set up like so. I do code and then dot, and that'll take me into VS Code in the right folder. Go to the settings.py, and this one here we can get rid of some of this stuff here. Let's get rid of this because it's just too much there. So we're in settings, and the first thing we're going to do is to put our application in there. Installed apps. We go to the end of this one here, and I go to the end of that line there. Let's put another line in there, and the app that I'm going to put in there is called Spondicious dot. And then I'm using CoPilot, and it's suggesting to me that I put in apps.spondicious.config. Now this is the proper way to do it since version 4 of Django. It could be that I could just put Spondicious in there without the rest of it, but let's do it the proper way. So I'm going to just press on tab to put all of that in there, and that's got that app set up in this installed apps. We're going to put some more stuff in this part here later. Okay, here is our app folder here, look. And there's no urls.py in there, and we need one in there. So I'm going to right click on here, and I'm going to do new file. And with new file, I'm going to do urls.py. This is the base urls.py. Let's bring that one up as well. So I've got two open there now. Let's get rid of this stuff here. I'm just going to leave that top line there so that I know that it is the base one, okay? And I'm going to copy some of this here. I'm going to copy this one here. So let's just do that. I'm going to do copy. Then I'm going to go to urls.py, and I'm going to start typing some stuff in here. And I'm going to do Command and V and paste that in there. Now we don't need this line here. That doesn't need to be in there because that's only got to be in the base urls.py. But we do need this one here, Django URLs import path. And we're going to get rid of this line here as well because that's to do with the admin as well. We don't need that in there either. So maybe one of the first views that you're going to set up is going to be a home page for it. So let's put a home page in there. Okay, DEF. So it says index on there, but I want to call it home. So I'm going to start typing in home. And then we're going to need to have in there request. And all that came in there from the Github CoPilot, which I think is marvellous, by the way. Okay, that's good. We've got that in there in views. Now we're going to go into urls.py for the app, and we can start putting stuff in here. So let's tab into this here, and then we're going to do a path. And that again was done for me by CoPilot. So this is going to be in the root of our website, and it's going to be called home or home view. So for instance, I could change this here to be home view and then just leave the name there as home. So let's go into this file, this one here, Spondicious, which is our app. And we're going to do a new folder. And we're going to call this folder templates so that the project knows where the template files are. The templates basically are the HTML files. So this is called templates. And what you also should do with this here to stop any naming problems is you should put another folder inside this one here called the name of the app. You can get away with not doing this, but I think it's probably better to do this. So let's call this a Spondicious. So let's go to this one here and do new file, and this time we're going to put in index.html. Start typing in HTML. And with VS Code, all I need to do is to select that here. I'm not using the CoPilot to do this. I'm just using the basic VS Code stuff, which comes in through emmet. Press enter, and I've got some basics in there to get started with. So I've got all the header in there, and I've got the body ready to go. And in here, what I'm going to put is in H1. So let's do that and put in hello Django. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to run our Django server again. So if I do command and backtick, I've got a terminal within VS Code as well I can use, which is kind of good. But I could also do the same back in Warp. So it's in Warp, and this time what I'm going to do is I'm going to start up the server. So to run the server, I've got another little code set up as well in the alias, and all I have to type in is PMR, which is basically stands for Python manage runserver, and we've got things in there that aren't working. Great. Let's go back into VS Code. Let's go into settings. And where I did this bit wrong here is I didn't put the comma at the end of here. Let's put the comma in there. And the reason it hasn't come through is because I need to go into this one here, into the URLs for the core. Let's go into this one here. And I've got to bring in include, comma, and then include. So path. And it's telling me to include spondicious.urls, which is exactly what I want. And this is coming in from Github CoPilot again. So I'm going to press tab to put that in there. I'm happy with that. Great. And the other thing I have to do probably is go into the URLs in Spondicious. And this one here, I've got to bring in the views. So let's do that now. Okay, so let's press enter, and then I'm going to do, that is what I need there to make this work. So press tab again. So I accepted something there from CoPilot and it wasn't actually correct. And what I actually needed in there was from.views import star, and that's going to work. Also what I needed to do so I could get this home HTML get showing was to go into views, and in here I need to put in here spondicious /home, because this spondicious here refers to, let's have a look in here. So in this one here, we've got spondicious templates. I need to put in that word there because otherwise it's not going to know the file is in that folder. And then I could go into the browser. So there you go, we got our first web page set up in Django. We've got a few more things left to do before we're finished up with this basic setup. So let's go back into VS Code. And here we are in VS Code, and we're going to do some more stuff. And one of the things I want to do is I want to set up a env file so you can hide away the secret key. Let's do that now. So this needs to go into the core directory. So it's our core here, and I'm going to do new file. And a new file is going to be called .env. So there's our .env file, lovely. And I'm going to start with putting in the debug. And then we want to have the secret key. And this is going to be equal to whatever the secret is. Let's go and get the secret from our settings. In our settings now, we'll go down to where the secret key is. We're going to grab that. So what we want is everything within the quotation marks. So let's cut that. And then I'm going to go back into the .env file, and I'm going to put this in here. And on this one here, we don't actually need to use the quotation marks. That has to be without quotation marks. That will do for the moment. You can put other things in there as well if you're using a key for your database, and it's a good way to make sure that you don't let out stuff so that people can go and hack your database. So this is important stuff. Okay, so that's good. And to settings, and we can put our secret key in here. Look, the secret key equals env, and then in brackets we're going to put the secret key in here. Just like that, just as Github CoPilot asked us to do, or suggested that we should do. Perfect. We've got to put a few things at the top of the file now. So I've copied some stuff at the top of the file, and I'm going to put this into here. So import environ, env equals environ.env. Here we've got debug equals true. So let's change that. So I'll change that to env, and debug. Again, Github CoPilot was doing half the work for me there. The .env file is going to be something that you put into your gitignore file. And we should make one of those now. And a good way to do one of those is to go to .gitignore.io. So here is our .gitignore. And it's on a Python thing. It's Django. What else? Mac OS we put in there as well. So let's do create. So what we're going to do now is you want to select all of this here and put it into the .gitignore file. And we can do this easily by just selecting all of this here. Copy that. Let's go back into VS Code. And I'm going to create a new file, .gitignore. And go into insert mode on this one here. Going to do Command and V, paste that in. Okay, environments, this is what I was looking for. So we've got the .env file in there as part of this thing here, which we brought in already, so that's perfect. Let's go back into VS Code. So we've got this working now. We've got a secret key coming in from the .env file. So the next thing we want to do is go into GitHub and make it a new repository. And we've got to set up Git as well on there too. Open up another one. Okay, so Git init. So we do git add and then dot. This is going to stage all the files ready to be committed. Now we can do a git commit. So do git commit -am, and then we're going to put in the commit message, and you have to put it inside these quotation marks. This is going to be our first commit. And here we are in GitHub. I'm already signed into this here. And what I'll do is I'm going to create a new repository. Okay, so let's do new on here. And this one's going to be called Django base. So I could actually sort of clone this at a later time, bring it in, and I won't have to do all this work again. I can just have all the job done for me already. Perfect. I can put it as public or private. I'm going to put it as public for the moment. We've got our gitignore file. We don't need to add a readme file for the moment. Don't need to mess about with choose with license, and let's just create a repository. Okay, so that's a repository created. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to push an existing repository from the command line. So this is the one that we want. I don't need to create it because it's already been created. So I want to grab this here. So I'm just going to copy that to the clipboard, go back into VS Code. Here we are in VS Code now. And I want to use it on this one here, this side over here. And I'm just going to do Command and V, paste that in and press enter. And basically that sent all of our stuff up into the repository. So let's go back into the repository now in the GitHub on the web. And we can do a reload of this one here, and we're going to see that we've got some stuff in there. So we've got our first commit, look. Only one commit done so far. We've got Acore, we've got our Spondicious app in there, we've got our gitignore. As we can see, it hasn't brought the database in, and it also hasn't brought in the .env file. Perfect. And we can't do a super user until we've done some migrations on this one here. So I think what I'll do actually before I run the migrations on this here is I'm going to close this. So let's do Control C. First thing you want to do is to make migrations and then migrate. This is going to set up the database. Okay, so I've got this set up with PMM1, and then to follow that off, I'm going to do PMM2. And this is going to do the make migrations, and you'll see what happens there. We've got all the migrations done, and we've got a database created. So if you look over here now, this here is our database. Now we can do our super user. Okay, so Python manage.py, create super user, admin, and then you don't have to put an email address in there. I'm going to put a password in there. I use the same password every time with this here because it's just something I want to do quickly to be able to get in and out while I'm working locally. Obviously, when you go live, you're going to put a decent username in there and a decent password as well. Do the password again. It's not going to like this password because it's far too short. I only use four characters because I wanted something easy. I'm just going to press yes and get past that, and I can get into it. This will get my server running. Let's go back into the browser. I'm going to reload. And here we are in Django administration. So now what I can do is I can type in my username, admin, my really easy password, and you can see we've got something in there. We've got groups, we've got users, we haven't got much in there so far. We've got an admin in there. I can put some more details in there if I want to. So if I want to make some changes to this, I can do. As you can see from this here, the Django thing, it's got everything in there already for us to use. It's brilliant. Got a password in there, but we can't see it and no one else can see it because he's got it's a salted password. It's protected by a SHA-256 algorithm, and it's hashed as well. We want to have a database password safe and secure on our website. Let's click on save. It is possible to set this project up with your login, your logouts, you change your passwords, all those sorts of things there. It's built into Django. But in Django 5, the logout didn't work. I had that broken on one of the projects I'm working on now. So what I did is I went back to 4.2.7. But what I'm going to do with this one here is I'm going to set this up using something else called django-allauth. And I haven't got django-allauth in there already, so we're going to go and find. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is do a pip install this one here. So let's grab this here. I'm going to copy that. Let's go back into VS Code. Go into the terminal here, which is ready for us to use. Let's do Command and V, paste that in. It's bringing in quite a few bits and bobs there, and we can see what else we've got in there. So now we've got extra stuff in there. Look, so this char set normalizer, cryptography, oauth lib, that's in there, that's new. We can do pip freeze, and then that, and put it into requirements.txt. Okay, so let's have a look at our requirements.txt, and then you can see we've got all the stuff in there that we've just added. That's very good. I like this. Good. Nice and easy so far. Let's grab this here. We've got to take this and copy that. And I'm going to put that in here. Let's do Command and V. We can get rid of those 3 dots there. We don't need those in. Those 3 dots there, we don't need those either. Get rid of those. Got some invalid syntax in there. Okay, let's bring this back across here so I'll see what I'm doing a little bit better. We can get rid of these messages here if we want to. Let's go down to installed apps, and in installed apps, here we are in installed apps. And I brought in allauth, allauth.account and allauth social account. Django contrib.auth, it's already in there. Django contrib.messages, it's already in there. And then you can bring in some provider you want to enable. So let's, for instance, say you want to do login with Apple. That's one of the possibilities there. So you could bring that in if you want to. So maybe you want people to be able to log in using Facebook. Let's copy that there. And I'm going to bring this over here and I'm going to put it in underneath this. So this is going to allow people to log in using Facebook. I have to go into Facebook and make an app so that people can do this, but we'll see how that goes. Okay, so that's a lot of different providers that you can use for that. Let's go and have a look in middleware, see if we've got to do anything with that there. So we've got Django middleware, so auth account. So this one we're going to have to bring in for sure. Okay, so let's just grab this one here and bring this in and copy that there and put it in at the bottom. And then we're going to add this bit here, so provider specific settings. So let's grab this here. Okay, so we've got social account providers. And the social account provider that we're going to use is not going to be Google, it's going to be Facebook. Another thing we have to do to get this working is to go into the urls.py for the call for the project and add this. Okay, so I made all those changes in the settings.py file and put this bit in here, change that to Facebook. I've got to put the client ID in later and also the secret in ID later, and I'll get those from Facebook. But everything else was working out okay here. Okay, so basically what I did, I ran the migrations here, the 2 codes there. I have the 2 aliases to do that, and then after that, I started up the. I used this here to start up the server again. Once the server was started, I was greeted by having all of this here. So in the thing here, I've got email addresses come in there now. I've got sites in there now as well, so I could go into this and make some changes there. Let's go back out of this here, back to home. I've got social accounts, and I could add a social account here, so let's do that. So I can put in the user, provider, the UID and stuff like that. Or I can get the application tokens, I can put those into here as well. So I've got everything now set up so that people can come onto the site and they can set themselves up as a user on the site by using their Facebook login. So here we are in the Brave browser, and I've got this set up. Look, I've gone into accounts and sign up, and you see I've got a menu there that I can use sign in or sign up. I can sign in, and also I can use this third party which is I've set up, but I haven't been able to set it with Facebook. So everything's working as it should be. So I just need to go into Facebook to get the secret keys necessary, or the API keys, whatever they're called. Okay then, this is how to set up a Django 5 project. I'm Dave Allen. Bye bye now. Talk to you again soon.